A woman took a deep breath to share her story. My name is Venus. I'm 46, married with 2 adult children. And my story didn't happen years ago, it happened last month. I feel as if my heart has been shattered into a million pieces, and he is now pouring acid on it. The room hung on her every word as she continued, I've given this man 26 years of my life. I put my dreams of finishing college and starting a business aside to raise our children and cater to his every need. I had the chance to write a book, but he said not right now. I had the opportunity to go into business with my best friend 9 years ago, and he said no. As tears streamed down her face, Venus's voice rose, how could I have been so stupid? I have to remind myself to breathe. Some days I wake up and think, if I kill him, I'll feel better. Other days, I just want to leave town and never look back without telling anyone where I am. She paused, wiping her face with a handful of tissues before downing her tea in 3 gulps. One of C's assistants quickly refilled it as Venus composed herself and continued, I want to put it all out there. My husband is a well-known executive who serves on the boards of several large corporations. He knows all the politicians in this state. I've had to be a little Miss Perfect throughout our marriage. I had no idea that he had a mistress. The thought of him sleeping with someone else for one night would have been hard for me. But I found out that he's been in a relationship with another woman for 20 years. What kind of woman lowers herself like that for 20 years? I learned of his affair last month. Venus took a deep breath before continuing, you see, on the 3rd Tuesday of every month, my husband has a board of directors meeting in New York. He always stays overnight, and sometimes he stays the whole week. Well, last month, while he was in New York, my best friend Stacy asked if I would help her with her business. One of her employees was off on maternity leave. I jumped at the chance. This is the friend who asked me to go into business with her years ago. Stacy's home assistant business has a lot of big-name executives as clients, and she's well known throughout the state. She made over $2 million last year. Every time I thought about that missed opportunity, it made me sick. We've been friends for over 30 years. Well, when I made it to Stacy's office that day, she was sitting at her desk in tears. When I asked what was wrong, she cried even harder. I asked if she and Jack were having problems. Jack is Stacy's husband of 5 years. I then asked if something was wrong with John, Stacy's 19-year-old son. Stacy looked at me and said, Jack left me for a man. I was shocked and started to cry myself. I did my best to comfort her and tried not to ask too many questions. Stacy said, please, do not worry about me. Then she asked if I would clean out some files in the other office. I knew she needed time to herself, so I started organizing files. In one of the boxes, I found pictures of John when he was a baby, along with a copy of his birth certificate. I smiled, thinking to myself that over the years, my husband has been like a father to John. Stacy was artificially inseminated, and John didn't have a male role model to spend time with. So, I knew how much spending time with my husband meant to him. I always tried to include him in our family vacations and cookouts. I love John as if he were my own son, seeing how I have 2 daughters and no son of my own. As I glanced back down at the birth certificate, I saw my husband's name under the father's name. For what seemed like eternity, I just sat there staring at his name. Thinking she could have at least asked me if it was okay to use my husband's name. Wait, you cannot just put someone's name on it, or can you? Ladies, it took a minute for me to catch on. I saw my husband's signature. I went from shock to sorrow to rage. I stood up and tried to compose myself. With the birth certificate in hand, I marched down the hall to Stacy's office. As my eyes watered up, I said, Stacy, why is my husband's name on John's birth certificate? She looked up at me and smiled. Why should your marriage stay intact when my marriage has fallen apart? I asked her again. She said, sit down, and I will tell you all of it. I sat down and listened to my best friend tell me how she seduced my husband, had a baby by him, and has kept the affair going for 20 years. The women in the group rocked back and forth in their chairs, visibly upset. Venus grabbed another glass of tea and threw it back like a pro. Stacy is a black woman. Immediately, several of the women stopped rocking and had a look of oh well. Venus said, I see the looks I am getting, but we are all the same. C said, you are right, and any woman in here who cannot support your sister should leave. The room calmed down, and Venus continued. That is when it all hit the fan. I had a moment of pause because something in me knew there was more. Stacy said the man Jack left me for was your husband and that they are together in New York right now. That was it for me. I flew across her desk and didn't stop welling on her until I was exulted. The next thing I knew, I was going 80 miles an hour down the highway, headed home. I remember packing a bag and making my airline reservation. I remember getting off the plane in New York and checking into my hotel room. It was like I was there but not there. I called my mother and talked to her for at least an hour. That calmed me down, and I went to sleep. That next morning, I was back to myself but with a vengeance. I went to the bank and made all the necessary changes. I called my attorney, started the ball rolling, and filed for divorce. I called my friend Jeanette and told her where the spare key to the house was, and made all the arrangements with a pack and move company and a storage company. I called Justin, a friendly enemy of my husband, who desperately wanted stock in his business. You see, my husband gave me 40% stock in his business many years ago as an anniversary gift. I arranged a 3-way conference call with him and my attorney to draw up a sales agreement for a very good price that had to be finalized within 3 hours, or the deal was off. I video called my life insurance company and placed a video call to the attorney who held my will, making the necessary changes with them both. I did what I knew had to be done on my end, after which I had my divorce attorney freeze all holdings so nothing could be sold or money moved until the divorce was final, and the icing on the cake was finding out he owned 52% of Stacy's company, which he had financially backed in the beginning. By this time, it was late afternoon. I made my flight reservation to return on a late flight, made sure I had all my things packed, and called for my bag to be held at the bellhop stand. I was ready to confront my husband. You see, I checked into the same hotel to make things easier for me. I knew what room he was in. A nervous sigh within the group made the women laugh. Venus laughed too. Wow, I needed that. Well, ladies, I walked up to his hotel room door and knocked as I covered the keyhole. I heard Jack say, "Who is it?" I said, "Turn down service." He opened the door, and I pushed past him, speed walking through the sitting area into the bedroom, and there he was lying in the bed watching TV. The look on his face was priceless. Jack quickly ran over to him, dressed only in a towel. I quickly pulled out my phone, took a picture, and walked out the door without saying a word. I checked out of the hotel, took a cab to the airport, boarded the plane, and sat in my seat without a smile, leaving my face the whole time. Venus looked over at C and said, "How will I get past this?" C smiled and said, "What you cannot see now you will see later. This is the purpose of our group, to make it possible for you to get past this intact, emotionally sound, and ready to live your next chapter beautifully." The women clapped and cheered. C said, "All right, ladies, time for lunch."